on, suckers!
Bernice. Bernice.
Bernice.
Bernice. Bernice.
Bernice.
Bernice. Bernice. Bernice.
Episode of Rich and Wibo present the Local Artist Show. Today we featured the cast and creative minds of the Barnaby Druthers radio show. What began as a spin-off of Nutmeg Junction, airing locally on several stations, is now airing in 13 states on 28 stations, including 2 in New Zealand, and another to start airing in Ireland later this year. Please welcome Joseph Timothy Quirk, Humphry Rolleston, Devon Richtmeyer, Kurt Boucher, and AJ Lynn to Rich and Wibo present the Local Artist Show. Welcome, everybody. So glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes.
I'm so glad to have you on here. I have another show I wanted to have you on last year, but for some reason it didn't work out. So I'm glad that we all got together at the same time. And let's get right into it. I want to start by having everybody introduce themselves and what they do with the show. So we'll start with you, JT, Joseph Timothy Quirk.
Hi. First of all, thank you for having us on the show. I'm a great fan. I'm able to listen to it and edit some of it so it can be aired on WAPJ and WHDD and other stations as Nutmeg Chatter. So I enjoy what you and Wibo do, talking to local artists. So thank you for the invite. I write Barnaby Druthers. We're going to specifically focus on Barnaby Druthers, but I've been writing audio theater and helped form the group that is now a cohesive unit, a team that strives to put together the best audio theater program, on the radio. So that's our mission. And Barnaby Druthers is a wonderful creation that is, I'll let others speak about, but it is somewhat mystery and some comedy and all a lot of fun.
Hey, Joe, the Barney Brothers, is that a circus or what?
Barnaby Druthers?
Yeah.
Barnaby Druthers is the name of a character that is played by Humphry Rolleston. It is a bumbling British detective who believes that he is the intellectual heir to Sherlock Holmes, but he isn't. Fortunately for him, he has Irene Adler, played by Devon Richtmeyer, who is there to actually solve the crimes and solve the mysteries for him, but somehow Barnaby gets gets the credit. And so that's kind of the premise of our stories, and they take place both in the Victorian era and in the modern day. So just like Sherlock Holmes, these are characters that can be put into any scenario, and you kind of have an idea as to how they would act and perform.
Do you have the characters meeting real life people? For example, I know in your other show you've had Edgar Allan Poe and some other characters, Mark Twain. is the same with Barnaby Druthers, where they interact with real historical figures?
Yes, and I'll let some others speak to it. Perhaps Devon and Humphry could speak to some of the to their roles and some of the characters that they've met while playing those roles.
All right. Well, I am Devon. I play Irene Adler, who is Barnaby's partner in crime. She's kind of the brains behind the operation, but she doesn't really want the glory. She just does it for the joy of solving mysteries. And I think she also enjoys the fact that Barnaby really likes the attention. So she kind of just leaves it up to him.
Okay, so who are some of the characters that you interacted with, the historical characters?
You're putting me on the spot.
We can get back to that.
Mark Twain was certainly one of them
Yeah.
in one of the earlier episodes, along with Harriet Beecher Stowe, Jack the Ripper. These are the Victorian era stories that they've met some historical figures.
Right. So this is for anybody. What is the origin of Barnaby Druthers? How did this whole thing begin? AJ, we'll let you take care of this. I know you are the director.
Well, actually, it was a thing before I came around. Joe, actually, I think it's his brainchild. It was, I think, created just to give us a little extra freedom in the mystery genre, really.
Yeah, when Devon and Humphry came on board with Nutmeg Junction, they paired them together for one short story, which was a lot of fun. It was the first one dealing with Mark Twain, and then after that, the characters kind of wrote themselves in terms of I had a sense as to what the characters would do, and we immediately did two more, and then more stories after that, and then it became something that clearly had staying power. So it started off as a one shot for Nutmeg Junction, but then because Humphry and Devon did so well in the roles, they embodied
sure.
the characters. We then began so now Barnaby Druthers is its own radio show on all of those type of stations, and part of getting organized and getting things structured, AJ took on the role of director. So for this entire year, she directs all of the episodes, and has helped
AJ.
what Barnaby Druthers is doing heading into the future. And Quirk Boucher is essential, not only as a character actor, but as a producer, somebody who is helps the audio, edit the audio.
I want to say, speaking of Kurt, he has the distinction of being the first actor added to the cast of Nutmeg Junction when it was simply an idea. So he's been around since the very beginning. He was one of the originals, and now he's, doing so many different roles.
Penny. Yeah.
So AJ, I have a question for you, because this is audio theater. As a director, what is your role? Do you get the script from Joe, look it over, and decide who's going to? Well, let you decide, or let you describe exactly what you do to make it from the page to the finished product.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. Joe will send me a script. Occasionally we'll, talk about changing one or two things, but then casting starts. I've got Humphry and Devon always, but sometimes I'll either have to go back and listen to older shows or just see what I've got for talent in Nutmeg Junction to do different accents. And I go from there. I see who's available, who has the certain talents we need for that particular script, whether it's modern or Victorian era. And then comes the listening part, making sure that I'm getting appropriate audio from everyone, especially with Zoom. I have to make sure there's no glitches or background sounds. And then after recording, it's out of my hands.
That's a good question, because originally before COVID, we used to record in the studio. Now we're doing it through Zoom. So Joe, for you, is it easier to edit? There we are. The WAPJ is being shown right here on local artist show.
Right here.
Live.
Yeah.
I really do miss that studio.
Mm-hmm.
Me too. I really miss the camaraderie that comes with being able to be at the big table, which I'll show a photo of that in a little bit, and then to be able to come in here into the Studio B of WAPJ, and there are 3 microphones that are set up, and people kind of gather around, take their turns reading their lines. They emote, they play off each other. That was how it was prior to COVID.
Yeah.
Obviously, with COVID, we couldn't do that anymore. But fortunately, technology improved to such a degree that we're able to do things like this, the Zoom recording, and sometimes we do Zoom recording. Sometimes people record on their own, and then we edit it, splice the audio pieces together. And so there's a benefit to that of being able to continue do it in safety. However, at some point, it would be a great benefit, I think, for the actors, as well as a lot of fun, just to get together and to be, as a team together, and how their interaction plays off each other. Sometimes that yields great results in the audio and in the performances.
I could say from personal experiences, because I've been on your show several times, the Barnaby Druthers Hour, and I can say I love the audience feedback. So sometimes you could say something that wasn't meant to be said, but oh wait, keep that in there, or do it this way, and it's much easier than doing it through Zoom, and you don't really know what everybody else is thinking until AJ goes, Rich, do it again. So, but I do think I love the live atmosphere where we play off of each other. So I think that's a great thing that you said, and I just can't wait till we get back to it.
Yeah, Rich, you mentioned that Kurt was one of the founding members of Nutmeg Junction. So were you, actually. Yep. When you were when we reached out to you, you were going to be our first guest. At that time we were thinking of kind of a variety show format with some audio theater, and you were going to be our first guest. And immediately you were asked to just be a part of it, and you've been a part of the group ever since, with the Nutmeg Junction, with Barnaby, because there's Victorian era settings. You've done some Victorian stories, but you've mainly done some of the modern ones where it takes place in America, and you don't have to do a British accent. So,
yeah. which I really do thank you for that.
Yeah, well, and so does the audience. The audience thanks us for that as well, I'm sure. And,
you understand
it. Right now, your role is being aired this week. This is not a spoiler. You play a corpse. So, as you know, so in one of the Barnaby Druthers stories. So
I just hope I don't get typecast. Well, I mentioned that I just had this show at the Palace Theater, and I mentioned you, Joe. I said you are the hub of all the local talent because you are in the middle of everything. As soon as everybody I meet, oh, you know, Joseph Timothy Quirk, oh, I was on a show and this and that. So you don't realize how much you do for the local scene. And Wibo and I have interviewed so many people for this show, and everybody raves about you. And I was raving about you at the Palace Theater. And I want to thank you for the opportunity, because what you have done is opened so many doors for me to do shows like this, Nutmeg Chatter. I work with John Bristol from Elwyn Productions. I never would have met him if it wasn't for you. So yeah, you don't realize the part you play, just besides writing a script and getting everybody together. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
That's very generous of you. I think in large part, one of the things is community radio, because without community radio is actually that form of media that has allowed us all to have a voice and to put forth our talent and our stories out into the public. And so I'm a beneficiary of that. And because of that, I'm happy to then extend invitations to more people so that they can experience and be a part of this amazing thing, which is community radio. community radio is nonprofit, it's commercial free, and it's there to give unique voices a chance to be heard. And so those are very kind words, and I thank you for them. I am a part of something that is community radio, which has given a large voice to a lot of performers and voices like Wibo, like yourself, Rich.
No,
and,
no. I got
everybody
tears.
on this.
Well, Joe, since I'm talking to you, and then I'm going to ask everybody else too, because what made you decide to do audio theater? So what was your inspiration? Like when you were growing up, were you listening to the radio serials, and then you said, I love that and I want to continue, I want to pay homage to it? Is that how it all began?
Yes, actually, I did listen to old time radio, The Shadow, Jack Benny, Vermeegi and Molly, Burns and Allen, those types of programs, and I listened to them on audio on the internet. So I would listen to them on these collections on audio tape that my father would order. They would order in the mail and then get back these audio tapes, and I would listen to them. And so that informed a lot of the interest in it. With community radio, I had the Nutmeg Chatter interview show before you deftly took the reins of that and brought it to you, and Phil Hall brought it to amazing levels far beyond my capacity. But I was on WAPJ already doing interviews, and wanted to do something that told stories, that was able to give an outlet to tell stories, to tell fictional stories, and to have an impact that way. And so that's how generally how it began. And it began here in WAPJ. I sat at this table with Robert C. Fullerton and Conrad Sinkowitz, and we talked about the idea that became Nutmeg Junction, and then eventually became Barnaby Druthers.
Okay, so Kurt, I'll ask you first. What was your introduction to audio radio? Audio theater, I mean.
Well, as a kid, I was a big sci-fi fan, and so I ate Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. His production of that, and then I found out there was all this other stuff. I used to actually get it out on a record from the library and bring it home and listen to it that way. So then when Joe offered this, it was amazing opportunity. And Joe can point me at a hill and I'll go conquer it for him.
Hey, Joe.
And Kurt does. In fact, you said Kurt was the first actor. It was actually a joint decision where there were two actors immediately that we reached out at the exact same time. It was Kurt and Lana Peck. Kurt and Lana Peck have acted together on many occasions, have performed as Glum Puppet, and I knew that they were so very talented, and it was a no-brainer to reach out to Kurt and Lana as we started on our journey. And then we've been very, very fortunate to have more voices, more talent join us, including Humphry and Devon, who have taken on this extraordinary role. And I do wonder if they realized when they started what they were getting into.
I don't think anybody did. I think that perfect example is John Ramsey. I know he's so impressed with what you did. How many years has it been? 3 years, 2 years that you started this whole radio theater?
We officially we came up with the idea that we would do an audio theater show in December 28th of 2017. I wrote 3 scripts, and we recorded them January of 2018, and then it went to air on March 1st of 2018. And since then, we've been on the air ever since, and only grown in stations and hopefully interest.
I think that's a given. Now, Kurt, I want to stick with you for a minute because I know you are a huge sci-fi fan. Just the fact that you and I co-host a show named Nerd Talk. So you actually wrote some shows, and one is called Cosmic Adventures. I know we're going to talk about Barnaby Druthers, but I want to talk about you in particular.
Right.
What is Cosmic Adventures?
Cosmic Adventures. I don't write. I just direct.
Okay.
And I play Jeeves the android on that, and AJ actually plays the Starball on that on that show.
That's part of the under the Nutmeg Junction umbrella.
Yes, and that's a lot of fun. We were just recording something a little earlier tonight, and another season of that coming. And I would love to get Humphry and Devon on Cosmic Adventures sometime.
Absolutely.
Because
Count me in. Count me
Yeah.
in. I'm there. Yeah.
we're also with Ilana Hunter. We're working on AJ and I are
Am I
helping
on
put
mute?
together a
No.
fantasy series, and we already have a character that we want to approach Humphry with.
Speaking of
Like
Humphry,
Humphry,
how are you? What is your introduction to audio theater? Be there? Yeah, we might have lost Humphry. Devon,
Uh-oh.
we'll come back to Humphry. What about you, Devon? So you came on the show in what year?
I think 2020 was it?
Relatively.
Yeah. I think I've been a nutmegger for a little over a year now. Growing up, we didn't really have much audio theater, but so my first experience knowing about it was seeing it in movies and thinking that it was a really cool way to get a story across before there was film and television. And when I got approached to do a little part in one of the first plays I did, I just was super excited about it because I'd heard about Nutmeg Junction, and I was really thrilled to finally get a chance to be a part of it.
Yeah, we're glad to have you be a part of it. And AJ, I know you're the director. Do you ever play any of the roles in Barnaby Druthers?
I try not to take too many roles in Barnaby Druthers just because I find it easier to pay attention to any glitches or things in the computer. But I do miss being behind the mic and actually acting. So Cosmic Ventures is great for that. Then we'll see what happens in the future.
You still get a chance to act, and then you get to direct the show. So Joe, I want to talk to you about your process because I am so impressed with you can say, all right, I know it's Tuesday. I'm going to write a little while. I'll come back with a couple. You can write 3 scripts in an hour. So what is your process? Do you already have an idea in your head and you just go and write for a couple hours and make sure it's done? Or
First of all, honestly, I couldn't write 3 scripts in an hour.
Pretty close.
Realistically, when I come up with an idea has to percolate, and then it often changes as I'm writing it, because something would come up that might inspire it, and might something better hopefully might come from it. I generally have a germ of an idea that has been kicking around, in the gray cells for to quote Hercule Poirot, and so I'm thinking about that idea constantly. I'm thinking about the show constantly and stories constantly, and there have been times where while doing other things, I have dictated onto using technology as it is. I've dictated scripts, but for the most part, it's I've kicked around an idea for so long that I have an idea, and I have an idea as to where it's going to begin, middle, and end. And then as I'm writing it, I kind of edit it as I go. I can't say that that's the most effective way of writing it. I don't think it's an effective, like if I was going to train somebody to write it, that's not how I would train somebody to do it. But that's how it's been working so far, given the constraints of time, because we have a weekly show. So we have to make sure that we have something that that can go out on air. We do rely sometimes on bringing back classic episodes, but we want to bring new stories to the front. hopefully in time we'll have more writers that will add their voices to Nutmeg Junction, certainly, and give me a little bit more time to write more Barnaby Druthers stories.
Currently, are you the only writer, or do you have other people helping you?
AJ and Kurt mentioned that along with Alana Hunter they're writing an actual series. They're going to be writing an 8-episode arc that's kind of a fantasy, if you Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Rings type genre story. So that's one thing. And additionally, we just had a 6-episode story arc in Nutmeg Junction for Sherlock Holmes that was written. The first 3 were adapted by, and then the other 3 were original by Randy Hudson, a writer who is already going to be writing more stories for us, and is collaborating with Jerry Crystal to work on some Moriarty stories.
What was the inspiration for Barnaby as the character?
I think the inspiration, first of all, there's a lot of the inspiration is Humphry and Devon coming onto the team. And when you start in Nutmeg Junction, unlike yourself, because it was very unique when you started, Rich, it was this organic. We're trying to put things together. When they joined us in 2020, initially when you start off, you kind of do a smaller piece, a smaller role, see how you like it, and then eventually something fits and falls in. And we haven't heard much from Humphry yet. Hopefully he's back with us, but he has a wonderful British voice that's his original accent. That's how he speaks. And so we wanted to certainly to use that. In addition, we did a Sherlock Holmes one shot with Dan Willey and Jeff Savage, which was great. And I've been listening to Sherlock Holmes short stories, and I wanted to kind of do a Sherlock Holmes story, but make it lighthearted, more funny. And I thought it would be a funny idea if somebody thought they were Sherlock Holmes, but really wasn't cut out for it. And that's kind of how things took shape. And with the Irene Adler character, I mean, that's a real character from Sherlock Holmes, A Scandal in Bohemia. That's a character that's Sherlock Holmes calls her the woman, and is a very iconic role in Sherlock Holmes lore. She only appears in that one story, but in the classic Doyle stories, but is such an interesting character that I'm sure others have written that character, and I wanted to write that character as well. I think there was a lot to be said, and Devon has brought a lot to that role in making it her own.
I don't know if you can hear me.
All right. Glad to have you back, Humphry.
Okay, great. Because I'm actually in a car, so I apologize for, we're driving on 84. But I'm not driving, by the way. My wife is driving. But I think Joe has said almost everything I was going to say. But what I really wanted to get across is just how brilliant the writing Joe is, and what a wonderful team that he's assembled. I'm fortunate to play the lead character, and I love playing Barnaby Druthers. And my wife would say that I've actually become Barnaby Druthers. I'm more stupid now than I've ever been, but always happy to take credit for everything that goes well, and to she's nodding in agreement as I say this, but it's Joe's writing is wonderful, and I love playing a role, and the other characters and the other people in the show are just so great, and we just have a lot of fun doing it. And I like others have said, we can't wait to get back in the studio. I really respect and enjoy being with these other great actors, and while my name is on the show, I'm really only a small part of what actually makes it a really enjoyable experience. And hopefully the audience gets as much out of it as we do. I think we genuinely enjoy being with each other. And Joe is so modest about his achievements, because what he hasn't said yet actually is he's the one who arranges all this amazing distribution across the country and now internationally. I mean,
we were going to get into that.
We just show up with a script, and just read it, but Joe is doing a million other things while we just have all, really get the glory, if you like. But Joe is just amazing and so talented and so respectful. And, I'm just blessed to be able to have a chance to play this great role. And I just hope I can continue to play it forever. Because I really enjoy it. And I did say to Devon beforehand, I was not going to speak too much, so I'm going to stop now.
She did say that.
I did say that.
This is a podcast. We want you to talk. It's all about, we don't want dead air. So please keep talking. I want to add to what you said, because I was in radio for years back in the 90s. And the one thing they taught me, one of the many things they taught me was, you don't have to be funny, but as long as you're having fun, it'll translate to the audience. And I think that's exactly what you said, Humphry, and what Joe is perfect at doing with his writing and with the cast that he puts together with AJ, because I could tell when I'm listening, you guys are having so much fun, and I love listening to it. And I could picture you all, in pre-COVID in the studio, just laughing and it's just, I'm having so much fun listening to it, and the script is hilarious. And Joe, what makes it so great, I'm going to add to this again, is because everybody's personality, and you write their personality. Like for me, you've written so many characters. You actually wrote a character named Rich Sear, which is another story. But I love the fact that you play on the real personality of the person playing the character, and I think that's what makes it even better, because maybe it's an embellishment of Humphry or an embellishment of Devon, and when I'm listening to it, I'm maybe enjoying it more than people who don't know these people. But I know what you're doing, and he's right. It's brilliant.
When you're writing something, and especially if you're writing more than one thing, you are inspired by the things around you, and obviously the talent of the incredible wellspring of talent here in Connecticut, especially this in our area where I've been fortunate enough to work with. Is an inspiration. So yes, like when Rich, you've done motivational speaking, but you've also done comedy. And when I met you, I was interviewing you because of your comedy and your stand-up. You had a stand-up show that was happening, and so using those resources, obviously, if I'm going to be writing a particular character. And I still haven't written, there's one particular story I haven't written yet, but it's going to be a murder mystery involving stand-up comedians. And you're going to be right there in it. It's going to be great, because somebody's going to die on stage, literally. So,
well, I can play a good corpse. You already know that.
I know. But just in terms of being inspired by, the people and the talent around, you are a stand-up comedian that, lends itself to the idea of doing a stand-up mystery. I haven't seen it yet before, of a mystery involving stand-up comedians. So that's just an example.
Wait, let me know. Have your people call my people. We'll talk.
Bridget's autograph.
Yeah. Devon, for you, when you're playing Irene, what are you thinking? Do you base that character off of anybody, or do you just make it your own?
I've just kind of made it my own. Humphry and I get along really well. We have a good rapport, and we share a similar sense of humor. So it's easy to just play off of him when he's playing Barnaby and just have that humor and have that kind of camaraderie. So it's fairly easy to make the character my own, and Joe's writing kind of just makes it super easy.
Now, for all of you, when you're going through the script, do you sometimes ad lib and say, oh, let me try this way, or let me do this, or do you read the script exactly as is?
Well, I'll have a go at this, because I think I've changed like 3 words in all the episodes that we've ever done, because the writing is so good. And Joe will occasionally reach out to me and just to sort of, when we're doing a story about cricket, I'm obviously the person to go to for a story about the intricacies of cricket. No, Joe's writing is so good that you don't need to change anything. For me personally, I don't need to change anything, except if it's an area I know something about, which is cricket, or if we do one about rugby, I'd be great at telling about rugby, or anything specifically, London-based or British-based, I could help with. Otherwise, the writing is awesome. So there's no need for me to make any changes.
Yeah, likewise. I don't really change anything around. Sometimes Joe will have me do a line differently after the fact, but the writing pretty much speaks for itself.
I think, and like AJ as the director has, one of the things that I rely on with AJ is keeping things on track and having a particular temperament to be able to try different things, but to also keep people in track. So it's, I don't look at it from the standpoint of all of my words are precious, because they aren't. I think that if somebody has a funnier bit or a better phrasing, we definitely go with that. I guess you would not call it an improvised show. So,
do you do any rehearsals beforehand, or is it just get the script, let's read it the way it is?
It depends on the script, honestly. A lot of times we do have scripts where maybe it's a more complex storyline, or we have a lot of foreign language in the script. And when that happens, I like to, especially in the Zoom calls, open the room up like a half hour early for questions and practice and stuff like that, which I would do anytime anybody wanted to do that with a script. But for the more modern scripts, generally, I'll answer whatever questions we have by email, and we'll just go into it at the recording.
Get back to the writing for a minute, because when you're writing, some of your stories are historical fiction. You put so many details that people might not even know are accurate, historically accurate. Do you do a lot of research for the stories to get it historically accurate, or do you just have fun with the story and go with what you already know?
No, I do research. A lot of stuff might be something that I already knew from a prior, documentary, or I would consider part of writing watching a documentary about something totally different, or a YouTube instruction on some esoteric philosophy or matter of physics, or something that is totally outside of what you're actually writing, because those particular ideas or details can then be infused within a story later. So when I've written about Harriet Beecher Stowe, I did research to make sure, was she alive at that time? That would be a good question. Could she have made this particular trip? Probably not, but you can't say that she didn't. Things along those lines, and like the dates of when her book was published, and at the time that her book was published, there was a lot of stealing, copyright issues between countries, specifically in the United States. So all those things came together in writing a particular story that involved Harriet Beecher Stowe dealing with Barnaby Druthers.
I know in Hartford, she lived next door to Mark Twain. Did you have those two characters in the same script, or was that two separate scripts?
Not in Barnaby Druthers, but in Nutmeg Junction, I had a serendip history story that did take place that was based on an anecdotal story stated when I took a tour, and I just kind of expanded upon it of Mark Twain talking to Harriet Beecher Stowe in a shared area, shared space, but not for Barnaby Druthers itself. But that again, that's a lot of inspiration and getting ideas from other stimuli and then incorporating them into a unique and original story.
If you're not exaggerating when you say that you were constantly thinking about this show, you're going to the grocery store and being inspired to write a story. No matter where you are, you're like, how can I make this into a funny story? And it seems to be working.
Well, thank you. Yeah, hopefully it's working. We are edified in the fact that the number of stations are expanding, and ultimately, what the reason for that is because we want as many people as possible to be able to hear the exceptional work that the team does. There is something that is enormously rewarding if you are, driving a car and you're on the radio and you hear your work being performed on the radio. There is nothing like it. It is extraordinary. And I don't know if you've experienced that, Rich. You've been on the radio for so long. But if you've ever been in the radio, if you have the radio tuned to whatever it is, and then you hear your work, whatever that is, that's something exceptional, and it kind of blows the mind. Saying, you know what, we're on in Brookings, Oregon, on KCIW in Oregon, and right now somebody is hearing, a story, a Barnaby Druthers story, and that's exceptional. That's an amazing thing.
Well, I can tell you an example of that was I was working a Sunday. My other show, Nutmeg Chatter, airs on Sundays at 1:30, or it did. I think the time is either changing or will be changing. Is that correct?
That's
okay.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, so I was at work, turned on the radio, didn't say a word to anybody, just let the show air and just went right back to work. And I see people looking at the radio, looking at me, looking at the radio. Yeah, I personally know that feeling, and I love it myself. It's a great feeling, especially when people are enjoying it too. When they're listening to it, like, wow, that's you. That's right. I don't know how many people. I work in the Torrington area, and I don't know how many people come up to me and just say, I think I heard you on the radio. I love that show. And there's a lot of fans just in that little area, and that's only Torrington. I mentioned in the intro, 13 states, 28 stations, including 2 in New Zealand and another to start airing in Ireland. So let's talk about that. How did you take it from WAPJ to a worldwide phenomenon?
If you recall, on our very first, recording day with the team, and we had a photographer there to kind of record the experience, which is pretty extraordinary. We should do that again sometime. I said, we have a national show, and we will let people know that we have that, because right now, at that time, it went from an idea to we're going to be on the radio on WAPJ, which is exceptional. It's community radio. We love that. And immediately we were asked if we could join Robin Hood Radio, which in their 5 stations in Connecticut and in the surrounding area. And I knew that the talent that we had, that exceptional talent of actors, can produce a show that has national appeal. And I started reaching out to stations, and you have to get used to hearing no, not taking it personal, even hearing it no after they've heard it and they've decided that they don't want it, or no because they want to have their own local shows. That's okay. Or which is more common, no response.
Yeah.
Because people, many stations, I'm sure, get inundated with pitches all the time. Many people may have an idea, but to have staying power and to show that you really want to create this show, a show for a particular station, you have to demonstrate that that you have the interest, not just in an email, but then to follow it up and to make sure that you show that you're serious. You're also very cognizant of people's time. Very, very briefly, when I was, I did artwork before I did this radio show. I had a comic strip that was in a couple of papers, The reason why it was in a couple of papers is because I reached out to, I want to say almost every newspaper in the country at some point in time, pitching them on the idea, because I wanted to have a comic strip in the paper. And eventually I broke through and I got a yes. And after that first yes, I got the second yes within 30 days. And then after that, I got the third yes within that same year. And so, one thing I would say, if it can be of inspiration to anyone with a similar idea or a similar mindset, is to be okay with getting no's and still getting out there and doing it anyway, knowing that you will eventually break through and get a yes. And once you get a yes, it's easier to get more yeses.
I can say from personal experience, when I was in radio, there was a disc jockey who was an instructor at Connect School of Broadcasting, and the main lesson that he taught me and the rest of the class was the more no's get you closer to a yes. And you are correct. I don't know how many times I got turned down. I kept going to station after station with my demo tape of my of me being a DJ. And finally, after the first job, I got 4 other jobs, bam, 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 right after the other. But it was that first one, oh no, you don't have any experience. I kept saying, well, how do I get experience if you don't give it to me? And finally, after that first job, they're like, oh, you have experience, I'll hire you. So I definitely know what you're talking about. And I think persistence is key. And you've obviously proven that. So what do? Just take a day and start calling. You look up the stations online, say, all right, let me call them. An example, how'd you get in touch with Ireland and New Zealand?
Well, with New Zealand, we have a number of people who love New Zealand as a country. Either their favorite shows or bands, or have there's an affinity for. I have an affinity for it. I had written one of the characters was a New Zealand, the captain of Space Sentries. The new captain of Space Sentries has New Zealand accent, played by David McArelli. And so I wanted to, reach out to them anyway. So I investigated online, found that they did have community radio stations, and then I sent them a concise but detailed email that said I created a community radio show. There's a link. You can listen to it. Who's interested? And I didn't hear anything, and so that the key was to then follow up, and following up shows without being bothersome. Following up in a reasonable period of time showed that there was interest without interest without anxiety, interest without the neediness, that sort of thing. And in so doing, we got some level of interest, and then it still took months. It took months to eventually get to the yes, but we did get there, and I'm very excited about that. With Ireland, one of the great legendary DJs. He was more than just a DJ. He's a radio broadcaster legend. Tony Henry was here in WAPJ, but he moved to Ireland after he retired, and he is on a station in Ireland. It's another community radio station. And so I reached out to him and I said, hey, do you think that there might be interest in it? He was able to forward information on, and again, it took months, because I think there's one thing to say I have an idea, and it's another thing to say I have an idea, it's serious, what is, and this is how we can show that it's not an idea that will be done one week and not the next. It's going to be consistent, and the quality is going to be consistent. And eventually they did accept the show, and it was thanks in large part to the Connecticut broadcaster legend Tony Henry.
AJ, question for you. Do you see now that the world is starting to open up and people are starting to have more and more shows, do you see any live shows for Barnaby Druthers in the near future?
Yeah, well, we're actually looking at a live show coming up this fall. And it will be at least part Barnaby Druthers, hopefully part Nutmeg Junction as well. and I'm really looking forward to it. It'll be in October. So,
Where will that be?
Joe, is it in Litchfield?
Yes, the Litchfield Community Center. It will be the Sunday before Halloween.
Okay.
So it's the Sunday before Halloween, and it'll be our only live show, the only live show in more than 2 years. We want to focus on being a radio show, but I think performing live is an extraordinary opportunity if it can be done safely and well, and we'll make sure that you do so.
Kurt, question for you, because I know that you performed live in several of the Nutmeg Junction shows. What was your experience with those shows?
Wow. So when we did a live one at in Falls Church, and that I loved. It was because it's such a big show, and we tried to do a little bit of all the different series we were doing at the time, including the only live professor. No, we did one on Nerd. We did a professor on Nerd Talk also, but that was a lot of fun. We had Dan and Deborah in that playing aliens, and that was a lot of fun. I don't know. I just it's been a long time since I've had to memorize lines. So to do something that's not reading off something, I need to remember how to do that. So that'll be fun. If I end up playing a character on that, I end up playing lots of little characters. I think it's probably because I don't say no to anything.
That's always been my philosophy too.
2 lines on something or being the main character, I'll do whatever, and I think that's why I'm probably in so many things. Also to work with these people. All of these people are just talented. Joe's writing, Humphry and Devon, they one of them mentioned the chemistry between the two, the interaction between the two of them, not only as characters but as people also. It's great. I love working with them. I love working with everybody in Nutmeg Junction and Barnaby Druthers. So
what I can say is I love most about the whole Nutmeg Junction umbrella with all the different shows that I've seen or been a part of is that there are no egos. Everybody is just there to have fun, do a great job. Nobody's like, oh, how come he got more lines than me? Sometimes I go in there, I have one line, I'm like, all right, see you next week. And I don't care. I'm having a great time and just glad to be a part of it. And I think everybody has that mentality. So it's amazing that there's so many talented people. And I've never encountered it myself, but there's no oh, how come he's got, how come he's top dog this week? How come I came all the way from here? So I love the fact that you have so many great talent and they also have the personalities go along with it. So Devon and Humphry, everybody's talking about the great chemistry between you two. What do you think makes that chemistry so great?
I think we're good friends in real life. So it just works out.
Did you know him before the show?
We had met, previously, but we've just kind of bonded over Barnaby Druthers.
Yeah. I think we have a sort of similar sense of humor, and but we just we're just having so much fun doing this. Although I'm a little scared about the live performance because, as my wife would say, I have a face for radio. Maybe not a voice for silent movies, but I have a face for radio. So I'm a bit nervous about the live performance aspect of it, but it'll be fun. It's good to take us out of our comfort zones. We don't want to get too comfortable and lazy. So I think actually it'll be good for us to do a live show. I think the chemistry is important, and I love your earlier comment, Rich, about if you're having fun, the audience will also enjoy it. It's like when you give a party, if you're having fun at your own party, everyone else will enjoy your party. My wife is shaking her head at this point.
Well, I can say, Humphry, I've seen you act at the Thompson Opera House. You have no worries at all.
Well, it's very. There you go. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm just giving my wife directions. Anyway, so yes, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Rich. It's been great. I just can't stop saying enough about how brilliant Joe is. So he's, you know, one of my motivating things is to do a good job for Joe, because I know he's worked so hard to, you know, pull this all together and to write these amazing stories, you know, week after week, and the quality is so high that I never want to let him down. And I'm sure Devon feels the same way.
Mm-hmm.
That we want to do a great thing for Joe, you know, and it's obviously for the audience too, but you know, Joe and AJ work so hard behind the scenes, and you know, we, you know, feel like we maybe get the glory because you know, we're some of the leading roles on this, but we have these other terrific actors who come on, you know, you know, the Jeff Savages of this world, or who come on, and Deborah and Dan come on, and they're just amazing. And yeah, so it's, long may it continue. We have to keep you alive, Joe, forever. Yes.
Well, I mean,
we also want to give a shout out to Jandy Hanna, because Jandy Hanna is also
yeah, she's
original
marvelous.
cast.
Yeah,
Jandy and Olivia Wadsworth. You know, because we've already name dropped all the other original cast, so we want to name drop them as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
This is what I love about Junction and Druthers and the cast in a whole, is everyone holds each other up. You know, it's what you said before about there not being egos, Rich. Frankly, I keep telling them they make directing easy because they do work together so well. I don't know what I'm going to do when I get back in the studio, because now we're on Zoom and we're off camera, and I'm listening to people doing their lines, and I'm like, yes, nailed it. And I'm like, I can't do that in the studio. You know, it's just
yes,
like,
you can. Yes, you can.
No, please, we encourage that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're all insecure. We need constant reassurance that we're doing the right thing.
Well, Humphry, you brought up a great point, because any great show, it's all about the writing. You can have the best actor in the world, put them with a bad script, and it's not going to do well. So yeah, I mean, it's a great combination of great acting with tremendous writing. So it's a perfect combination, perfect storm. Devon, what is your background? Did you do acting before you started with the audio theater?
Yeah, I've been doing acting since I was in elementary school. Used to do the junior plays, then I did plays in high school. Then I went to school for film, and I've done a couple of Goshen Players plays. So
Let's talk about film then. Have you done
Just a fun fact. I remember seeing Devon perform at a Goshen Players. It was the
complete works of William Shakespeare
abridged. And so, as part of kind of like a Nutmeg Junction, Nutmeg Chatter precursor, I interviewed the cast of that show, including Devon, and so I've seen Devon perform. This was before she joined us, and then I believe it was David Macarelli who made the recommendation. I think this actress would be great for.
Yep.
Dave brought you onto the show.
Yep.
Yeah, they brought her on to do. I think it was like Duke Danger. It was kind of like a Buck Rogers spoof that we only did one of, but it was a fun bit.
It was funny. Speaking of people bringing on other people to the show, Jeff Savage came to my show the other night. It's like, Jeff, I didn't think you'd realize you were going to make Humphry a superstar. He goes, yeah, because Jeff Savage is the one that brought Humphry to Nutmeg Junction a year and a half ago or so. And I said,
well, Jeff is a real actor. I mean, I'm a complete amateur compared to Jeff. I mean, Jeff has been in sort of movies, and he's doing lots of commercial work. And I only came into acting after I retired from corporate America, and I hadn't done any acting since high school back in England. The last thing I ever did was back in like 1972. I think it's the last time I acted. So I having a British accent, a natural one, gives me a point of difference, I suppose. And I'm willing to try anything, and happy to play any part. So it's just been a really happy accident for me to fall into this role. I mean, it's a role of a lifetime, but it I was Joe gave me this opportunity, and I was able to take it, and it was just a happy confluence of circumstances that brought us together. So I'm just eternally grateful for the opportunity.
You got into acting when you retired and you just wanted to keep busy?
Yes, I want to keep busy. My wife was, I married you for rich and for poor, but not for lunch. So I needed to have, do something completely different. And acting does that. And I love being part of a company. And the sort of camaraderie that comes together to produce, in the creative process, I find really interesting. And everybody is really smart and thoughtful and respectful and just fun to be with. So the whole thing is just really enjoyable, and it's just great. I've met people I would never have met, in the normal course of events. So it's been great for my almost my personal growth, that I've just got into a whole field that I knew absolutely nothing about, and here I am.
Well, I mentioned earlier that I saw you act at the Thompson Opera House. What are some of the other shows that you've done?
Well, at the Gershon Players, I was in The Importance of Being Earnest. I played a butler. I tend to get roles like because we all know that God is an Englishman, and so it's perfect for me to play that one. And what else have I played? I want to think what else I've done. I've done some Shakespeare. I did Comedy of Errors a couple of years ago in Washington, Connecticut, and we're due to be doing Twelfth Night coming up in August in Washington. This is a company called Shakespeareans.
Oh yes.
And it's an Actors Equity production, and so it's got some professional actors in it. I'm going to be playing a character called Sir Andrew Aguecheek, who's a sort of fat, drunken Englishman. So it's a real huge stretch role for me to play this one. So I'm looking forward to playing that breakthrough role, and that should be great fun. Bit of a quick plug. It's August 4th through 8th. It's going to be in Washington Depot at the Pavilion. Tickets are free. It's going to be an evening production outside, and it'll be a lot of fun, assuming the weather holds. If it's weather like tonight, it won't happen. But hopefully in August we'll have some fine weather.
Right. Well, I'm hoping to be there. Hopefully the weather holds up. Kurt, I know that you've done some acting and you've done some behind the scenes, such as writing, directing, producing. What do you prefer?
Oh, I love acting and these things. Although next to everyone else, I feel like I'm just bumbling through stuff a lot of the times. I just completely feel like sometimes when I listen to the show back, I'm like, oh my God, I said that so poorly. I just wish I could go back and re-record that. And sometimes I'm kind of like, can I get away with re-recording this at home, or can you totally tell that I screwed this line up, or if I try to swap something in? So far, I haven't been able to actually sneak something in that I re-record. But if I'm doing scrubbing the audio for Joe or something like that, I love the recording, but also I got to do a full production of one of the Sherlock Holmes episodes recently, the Napoleon of Crime, and that was so much fun. Sound design, just little things to sneak in there. So I love it all.
Well, I can say from personal experience that with other shows I've done, I know where I made a mistake, and I would get so angry at myself, and then other people would say, what are you talking about? I didn't notice anything. So for the most part, you know exactly what you wanted to do, but the rest of the audience has no clue, and it always sounds great. I've known you for several years, and I've never seen you do a bad job at all. So keep up the great work.
I appreciate it, Rich, but thank you.
Right. AJ, let's talk about you now. because we right now I met you during the 48-hour film fest, which I'm hoping to do again this year with the great Tiffany McKay and friends. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and of course, let's go back to Joe, who wrote the whole script in 24 hours. But so do you? I know you said you like acting. You also direct. What's your past? Have you acted for a long time?
Yeah, I've been involved with theater since I was a kid. My sister dragged me along when she had to babysit me, and I ended up just kind of wanting to be in the shows after a while. And I did that. I started to get into theater in middle school, did a few shows in high school, went to college and said, I'm not going to do a thing in theater. I'm just going to take a semester and learn the ropes, until my friend said to me, so I know you can memorize this part in a week, and I really need someone for my one act. So that was kind of it. Shout out to the Crescent players at Southern Connecticut State University, because they are an amazing group. And without them, I probably wouldn't still be involved in theater. So it was great to do that. It was great getting involved in the 48-hour film challenge with Joe. And when he invited me down to Nutmeg Junction, at first I was like, I don't know, Joe. And I made the joke Humphry made earlier. I said, I don't know, Joe. Yeah, I probably do have a face for radio. And and I think he was mortified, but I was like, no, let's have some fun and try it out. And I've loved it.
The rest is history. Now, we talked about the Barnaby Druthers radio show. Tell me about the Barnaby Druthers Mystery Hour. What is that?
Well, that is the radio show that the first half is Barnaby Druthers as its own show, and then the second half is Nutmeg Junction. So instead of listing it as two shows, I just send the entire thing as one cohesive audio theater experience as the Barnaby Druthers Mystery Hour, and it makes it simple. But that way, the work that people do on Nutmeg Junction is still heard on the stations that air the Barnaby Druthers Mystery Hour. That Nutmeg Junction will still be heard on it.
Locally, I'm recording this in Connecticut. WAPJ is the home station. What times can you hear this show, and what day?
And on WAPJ, it's at 1 p.m. for Nutmeg Junction, and 1:30 now for Barnaby Druthers. Nutmeg Chatter, I think, was moved to 3. So it's Sundays 1 and 1:30 for Nutmeg Junction and Barnaby Druthers, respectively. On WHDD and their stations, the Robin Hood Radio, which is based in Sharon, Connecticut, that's at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. on Monday nights. On WBCR in Great Barrington, it's Sundays at 1 p.m. On WESU, that moves depending on the schedule of because it's associated with the school and whether the school has DJs and scheduling. They generally put us on in the late hours. When I say late hours, I mean early mornings, but that's okay. It still counts. So that varies depending on their schedule in Connecticut.
Sure, you don't realize how many people listen that early in the morning too, though. So it may seem like, oh, we're early in the morning, but there's a lot of people getting up for work or whatever they're doing, and maybe working out before work, and they turn on the radio and they hear us.
You never know who's going to listen. That's true. That's why it's always important to put your best foot forward and to never phone it in, to make sure that each is a story that you're proud of, that the work that you're proud of, and that because that one episode, whatever that is, that might be the one thing that an entire impression of your show is based on. So it should be the best quality. That's what I always think of for myself. I try to hold myself to that.
Exactly, because you can't say, oh, you should have been here last week. You should have heard that one, because that could be their first impression. Right. Like, oh, so yeah, I agree with you. Always make every show like it's the only show. I love that mentality. And you mentioned earlier the first meeting for Nutmeg Junction. You had a great quote when you discussed about making this a worldwide phenomenon, and it was by Steve Martin. What is that quote?
Yeah, well, it's Steve Martin quote. And now that you ask me, if you had not asked
All
me
right.
that, I would have put it.
It's something to the
I
effect.
apologize. Just,
Well, no, I'll tell you. I think something to the effect of make yourself so great that people won't forget you.
No, it's be so good that they can't ignore you.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Like-
Because the story for Steve Martin was that people would come up to him all the time and say, how do I get an agent? How do I basically, how do I get to the success level that you have, type of thing? And his response, it was, I'm sure that gets old after a while when it gets to, to that level. And so eventually, had the best response, which was focus on being good, and then be so good that they can't ignore you. And that's kind of the, I guess the marquee slogan that we should, that we always try to adhere to, that would say, let's create the best audio theater program on the radio, and make it consistent, and make it, and I do believe that with the level of talent that we have, and the enthusiasm that we have, the more that we keep on expanding it, people will know the work that we do, and we can't take for, we're forever grateful for opportunities like this, where we're able to talk to you and Wibo, and get the word out about Barnaby Druthers, because there's always going to be that one person that hears about our show through this. Hope more than one, I'm sure.
I hope so too.
Thousands. But in other words, there's always one, there's always some form that somebody gets to that point, and however it is, we're grateful for the opportunity when we're able to share our story, and to talk about what we do, get the word out.
Wibo's wife's gonna be really impressed with this. The one person listening. No, so we talked a little bit about how people were brought onto the show, how you recruited people. Say if somebody was watching this and they had an idea for a character, they wanted to be a part of this, are you still open to people coming in for maybe a one-on part, or maybe even becoming, on a recurring character? And how can they get in touch with you?
Well, that's hard to say, because in a way, the ability to have a level of knowing who the people are when they reach out. It's usually through our particular group, that somebody would say, hey, I know somebody that is interested, and that's how we've been grown. We've grown to a level where we now have 30 actors regular there. And also, as a writer, you have to be cognizant of not even seeing somebody else's idea that you might wind up writing later, and then saying, oh well, you don't want to take anyone's idea. I would say that if the people have comments, suggestions, they can email us at barnabydruthers@gmail.com. That would be one way of reaching out in regards to Barnaby Druthers. And Nutmeg Junction does have a contact form on our website as well, that people could reach out with ideas.
Very good.
Because I was.
Okay. Would you like to share that with us, Humphry? Anyway,
Sorry, I was unplugged for a second because we just arrived home. So could you repeat the question? I apologize.
I was making a joke. So I heard you speaking with your wife, but we were just talking about people wanting to be on the show if they were watching.
Oh, right,
this, want to be a part of it. And Joe is letting my audience know who they can get in touch with, the email. So that was because we were talking about how he recruited some people, how other people were brought in, and that's what I love about this area. As I mentioned before, I'm in Connecticut. It seems like the entertainment community is very small, and I can go to a show and see like 4 or 5 people that I met through Nutmeg Junction or Nutmeg Chatter, or or Barnaby Druthers. I can go somewhere else, and so it seems like it's so small and everybody's connected. And from what I can see, I'm sure there are some egos here and there, but for the most part, it's just everybody wants to help each other out. And I always say, Joe, I mentioned it the other night, you are at the center of it all. That I can see.
Yeah.
Man.
Community radio is at the center of it all, of which I play a part, and I'm happy to be a part of it. But there's a vast array of talent here at community radio, specifically at WAPJ, and I would not have this opportunity were it not for John Ramsey, the general manager of WAPJ.
Now we always go back to the writing and how great the writing is. That's what makes this show so good. So when you're writing, you told us a little bit about your process. How many drafts do you usually go through before you say, I'm done, this is as good as I'm going to get it?
Well, because it's a weekly show, it's not the first draft that's the last, but often I've written it. And because I've edited as I've written it, there might be some typos, but you could look at it as a first draft, but that first draft has usually gone through about 3 revisions as I've written it, generally speaking. Because what I've also found is to be able to put some foreshadowing in an earlier segment, after I've written, somewhere down 3/4 of the way through a story, I might go back and then add something, add a scene, add a line, that sort of thing. So it might seem as if it's the first draft, but it's really, like, I would say the third that I've written to its conclusion.
And since it's a half-hour show, how do you know? You must have it down to a formula by now, but how do you know, right, this is exactly a half-hour long, or do you try it and maybe cut some things out to edit it to make it a half-hour show, or do you know?
No, well, in writing a script for film, some people say that a page is like a minute on screen, and I tend to think that for a 28-minute show, that a script somewhere in the ballpark of 20 pages to 21 pages can comfortably fit in there, and then you can add some, adjust, some of the sound effects. But that's based on if it's not like an entire, like in some cases with Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson does a whole bunch of narration, and so 21 pages could wind up being 45 minutes. So you have to know when to cut narration if dialogue would do. Sometimes I've cut lines that either didn't land, like after we've already edited it, after you've already recorded it and producing it. If it's cleaner or faster to move the story along, to cut a section out or cut a line out, I've done it to make the story move along faster.
What impresses me listening to the finished product is, as we're recording, it's funny, the script is great, but then I hear the sound effects and the music. When you're recording the dialogue, are you already imagining, all right, we need this sound effect, we need this noise, and where do you get all of this?
Well, at this point, there's a huge backlog of different sound effects. I mean, I don't know how many times people can walk from one end of a room to another, but that's a sound effect. Closing the door. There are many different resources online that have free, royalty-free sound effects. Some I've gathered just out in the field, depending on the scenario. We rely heavily on some music. I want to give a shout out to Bob Eccleston, who played the hand, kind of a version of the drum that is an extraordinary theme music for Barnaby Druthers, and the incidental music. And then a huge shout out to Robert C. Fullerton, who's performed more than his share, I'd say, of guitar work the show, themes for the show. Robert C. Fulton has performed not just guitar work. Now I think about it, he wrote a synthesizer type music for Cosmic Ventures. He wrote that theme. He also wrote the theme for that we use for the Sherlock Holmes series.
He also played some great characters as well on
Yes,
the
he
show.
does.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody for being on the show. It was so great to finally have the cast of Barnaby Druthers. And I personally want to thank you, Joe, because I mentioned this to you off the air, but you've met me when I was doing comedy. You had me on your TV show, your podcast, your radio show. You gave me the opportunity to be on this show. You gave me the opportunity to take over Nutmeg Chatter along with Phil Hall. And that's opened so many doors to so many different things that I never even knew existed. I met so many great and interesting people, such as everybody here. So that's a personal thank you from me. And I want to go through everybody and see what's next and where can people find you. But thank you very much for that, and just keep up the great work.
Well, that's a wonderful testament. Thank you, Rich. I think it also shows the type of person that you are, who earns every single one of those opportunities and accolades, and you don't take anything for granted, and you do great work. And you also, especially in this show with you and Wibo, provide a voice for others to shun. So you take that opportunity and you give it to others. So thank you for doing that.
Wibo's a very sensitive guy. All right, so AJ, for you, along with Barnaby Druthers or other things, what's next and where can people find you?
Well, the first thing is getting through the live show in October. I think you guys will find it full of surprises. And then who knows, wherever life takes me next.
All right, I'm looking forward to it. Kurt.
As much Nutmeg Junction and Barnaby Druthers as Joe and AJ and the rest will let me do. You know, we got the new fantasy series coming out on Nutmeg Junction soon that we're bouncing around names, but yeah.
Gonna bring back Nerd Talk?
So the episode we taped in December, that died with my old computer. So the Barnaby Druthers episode got on. Yeah, that's been aired a bunch, but we taped an episode after that, like December 23rd, and I was in the process of editing that when my computer died. So yeah, I just have not pulled together another episode, but Nerd Talk will return someday.
All right, looking forward to it. Humphrey.
Well, I will do anything anybody ever asks. Because I'm retired and I've got, like, you know, there's no such thing as a weekend for me, and I've got an enormous amount of free time. So after the Shakespeare thing in August, and we start rehearsals in a couple of weeks, I'm looking forward, although a little terrified by the prospect of live performance. But I just want to be a part of Nutmeg Junction forever, and the Barnaby Druthers character in particular. But I'll do anything. You know, third murderer. You know, if you need a third murderer, or you know, the third lobster. You know, I'll play that part.
You're rich.
So. What about you, Devon?
Barnaby Druthers, of course. I am very excited about the live show, and hopefully any other Nutmeg Junction that I get invited to do.
Hopefully we will all be back in the studio at WAPJ, where Joe is right now currently. So Joe, what is, I know that you're busy with 18 different projects going on all at the same time. What's, besides Barnaby Druthers, besides Nutmeg Junction, do you have anything else going on that you'd like to plug?
I think you know, the radio show is what we're focusing on. You know, we're putting an intense amount of focus on, and that along with the live show that will help, you know, supplement that and put the word out. But I've actually curtailed a lot of the other activities so I can focus and put all my focus into making sure that we have the best audio theater radio show that we can make it. So the focus is on Nutmeg Junction and Barnaby Druthers, and that's hopefully the takeaway.
I can honestly say, I mean, you probably know more than I do, but is there any other audio theater, local audio theater that people are doing in this area at all? I've never heard any other besides playing the classics, like as you mentioned before, Jack Benny, Burns and Allen.
I do think that it's not, I wouldn't be unique in the sense that I think people certainly do, and companies certainly do one-off shows, certainly holiday episodes or holiday classics. They might do a show a year or maybe two. I think for the most part, audio theater now has found an extensive home in podcasts, where you might do a limited series podcast. I think that's where you find a lot of audio theater programs, and there are audio theater programs across the country. But what we are doing with the creating a network of stations, I think is relatively unique now, but it might be a roadmap for others in the future.
Well, what I love about audio theater is that you have to use your imagination. The imagination is so much more than what somebody could show on a screen. So I enjoy listening to the show, and what I'm imagining or thinking of while I'm listening to it could be completely different from what Devon's thinking or what Humphry's thinking. And that's why I think it makes it so unique and so great with audio theater compared to watching this in film form. And I love it. Keep up the great work. I love everything everybody's doing. And if I can't be in the show in October, I know I was asked, I think I have to work that day, but I'm going to try and get there down for at least a little while. And I'll be there supporting everybody. And I appreciate all the support you've given me. Wibo.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Do you have any final words for the group?
The local artist show is hot. We moving.
He's always a self-promotion machine. he's even better than me, JT. Because really quick, Joe, I love the character because you always have me promoting my character, Rich Sear. And actually, I love this because on the website it says I have the distinction of being not only playing myself but somebody else playing me, and I love that.
That's right. That was a great bit. And I have actually stood in for Rich Sear sometimes when when you couldn't record with us at the time and you have to record separately. And so I've acted as Rich Sear and tried to put as much energy as the public demands of a Rich Sear that no one outside of none of the public, only our actors, will have experienced the Joe Quirk version of Rich Sear. But it's an opportunity to play.
I wouldn't want anybody else to play me but you, Joe. I appreciate it. Once again, thank you to the cast of Barnaby Druthers for being on here. Keep up the great work. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Have a
thank
great
you.
night. That wraps up the latest episode. You're welcome. That wraps up the latest episode of Rich and Wibo Present the Local Artist Show. A huge thanks goes out to the extremely talented cast of Barnaby Druthers, the man behind the curtain, Joseph Timothy Quirk, Humphry Rolleston, Devon Richtmeyer, Kurt Boucher, and AJ Lynn. A special thanks also goes out to you, the viewer, for tuning in. Enjoy your day, everyone.